The Gorge is a 2025 American film directed by Scott Derrickson and stars Miles Teller, Anya Taylor-Joy, and Sigourney Weaver. Notice I corrected myself. I'm trying to get myself in the habit of saying Anya instead of Anya. For the longest time I said Anya Taylor-Joy. She pronounces it Anya. I'm trying to respect her on that. But seriously though, Sigourney Weaver. Oh my god. The plot follows two military-trained snipers guarding opposite sides of a secret gorge. And they're sent there with no knowledge of where it is, like on this earth, and why mysterious creatures are trying to crawl the fuck out of it. And to be honest, it was mainly the premise that really had me interested. Even more so than the fact that Scott Derrickson directed it, because, you know, he's a director that's on my, you know, I'm paying attention, I'm trying to. Or the cast, it's a good cast. Or the fact that Chris Stuckman and Jeremy Johns have reviewed this. Also, the Gorge location is rumored to be like the gate to hell. And I have a thing for monsters and fictional places. The setup is pretty cool, albeit full of fucking flaws. So basically you parachute down onto this island, or whatever you call it. You get debriefed by your predecessor, and you stay there for a straight year. I have to say, I did watch this twice, and I'm glad that I did, because I didn't really care for it too much the first time. Oh, and I forgot to mention, so the two snipers on opposite sides of the gorge, they're forbidden contact between each other. So, yeah. Anyway, so while I did end up mostly liking this film, it's not really my thing, not really my cup of tea, and I'll try not to let that affect my, you know, my opinion of the overall quality. Now for some things that I liked here. The plot is, like I said, kind of clunky, but I do like the premise, you know, the thought of a gorge somewhere on this earth full of something completely unknown to mankind. It's pretty cool to me. I also liked the soundtrack by Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross. I thought that was pretty cool. In some ways, I was kind of reminded of the Quake score that Reznor did back in the 90s. Maybe it's just me. And I liked the creature designs for the most part. Some of the designs reminded me actually of The Thing, which, you know, I'm a huge fan of, and so are you, and so is everyone that has good taste, right? But I will say there's a little bit too much CGI used. I would actually say there's a lot of CGI, way too much CGI used here. But I still, regardless, I still like some of these creature designs quite a bit. Like there's a scene with a very cool carnivorous plant. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But it's both my favorite creature and my favorite scene. I also really liked the color palette here, because this is a very vividly colored film, especially at times, and especially like in the third act from what I remember. And I'm a sucker for vivid, bright colors, especially when it's done in an unnatural way. I don't know if that makes any sense. That's the best I can do to describe it. But you do get that a lot here, especially, like I said, later on in the film. So I wasn't super familiar with Miles Teller. I think I may have seen the Fantastic Four movie he was in, where he plays Reed Richards, but I don't really remember it too well. And it looks like he does a lot of action films. So I guess you would say he's pretty comfortable in this setting, and it shows. And he's really good here. I really liked him, and I found his character believable and likable. Anya Taylor-Joy is a total pro, and she's charming here, as she literally always is. I mean, come on, there's a reason why she's gotten to where she's at. And as to where, you know, Miles Teller's character is more serious and he does things very by the book, she's more playful, despite them both having what I would imagine to be the same training. So the dichotomy between the two characters is cool, it works, I liked it. But here's the thing for me. I liked them both individually. I even liked them together, but I didn't really buy into the romance angle between the two. And that is kind of what makes this film unique, because it's essentially, it's action, romance, sci-fi, I guess you could call it, kind of thing. But the romance aspect is a big part of the film. I just thought it was rushed, and it didn't really work for me, that aspect anyways. I also thought that most of the film, like I said, was way too CGI heavy, but I can defend it at points, like, again, with my favorite character. Completely CGI, and I loved it. But so first, I kind of get it. This movie would be ridiculously expensive if the effects were all practical, and it probably, honestly, This movie just never would have happened. But now I'm going to kind of get into what I didn't like. As I said 1,000 times already, there's a ton of CGI here, way more than I typically prefer. But I will say that it bothered me way less on the second watch. I mean, I know I've complained about CGI probably too much already. And when it comes to CGI backgrounds, though, because there's a lot of that here, there's a lot of like, I'm just gonna say like green screen stuff because that's, you know, I'm not a technical minded guy, especially when it comes to filmmaking. But it kind of annoyed me at first, but then I thought about it more, and I was really reminded of Mad Max Fury Road, and even Mad Max Furiosa or whatever it's called, which, you know, Anya Taylor-Joy was also in. So I did think that worked. But like I said, I didn't really realize that until my second watch. And I mean, like I said, my favorite creatures from this movie were done with, as far as I can tell, entirely CGI. So I mean, I think that does say something, especially with my kind of dislike of the overuse of CGI. And another thing that I was constantly questioning was, why are there only 2 guards posted at the Gorge? I mean, would it not make more sense to have like an entire army? It's a cool plot. Like I said, I do like it, but I don't think the writing was very unique and not particularly strong. My next complaint, though, is more of a personal preference, and that would be the overall tone of this film, which is, it's really more of a sci-fi action instead of horror, where I would have preferred something that was more like sci-fi horror. I'm a big sci-fi horror guy. There are some cool horror elements here, but this is an action film, I would say, first and foremost. And I'm not a huge action fan these days, so that's not really a complaint. Like I said, it's just more of a personal preference. And my final complaint would be the PG-13 rating. Now, I didn't even actually know this was PG-13 until I was sitting down to watch it. And I gotta say, this really took the wind out of my sails before the first watch. I'm not saying a PG-13 movie can't be good. Obviously, we've seen a lot of them. But I just feel like most movies would benefit from an R rating. So this did bum me out from the beginning. But I gotta say, they make it work. Almost like I've never seen. In fact, it's nearly unnoticeable. But still, should have been rated R. So I'm giving The Gorge a 6 out of 10. It doesn't all work for me, but there was enough there for me, to enjoy and to even think about afterwards. Like I'm still thinking about this movie a little bit. Is it a future classic? Maybe not, but it is fun, and I'd recommend it to fans of stuff, like The Thing or Annihilation. Just don't expect it to be on the same level as those two. Cheers, guys, and I'll see you at the multiplex.